Good morning, and welcome to the Stylo News Intelligence Update for August 26, 2026. Today, we are delivering a calm, fact-based, and strictly objective situation report on the current flashpoints across the Middle East. This early morning explainer is your direct lead-in to our comprehensive Morning Intelligence Explainer, where we analyze the shifting strategic landscape over the past 2 weeks. We are keeping things strictly to the data, cutting through the noise to give you a clear, unvarnished picture of the facts on the ground.
Before we dive into the analysis, we want to acknowledge our sponsor, ProWave AI. They're the developers behind the advanced AI-powered open-source intelligence program Stylo Intel Ops, as well as Stylo News, the commercial version you can access on the web and through their mobile apps. The insights we are unpacking today are directly powered by their analytical engines.
Let's take a look at today's briefing docket. We will be systematically covering 5 key areas. First, diplomacy and military operations in Gaza. Second, the escalating border friction in Lebanon. Third, maritime and internal threats brewing in Yemen. Fourth, Iranian proxy strategies in the face of new sanctions. And finally, we will wrap up with our regional forecast and what to watch for next.
Section 1. Gaza, Diplomacy and Operations. The disarmament stalemate. Focusing on the tactical layout in Gaza, the combat zones remain highly active. We are currently tracking ongoing Israeli artillery and airstrikes concentrated across Gaza City, specifically the Tufa and Shujaiya neighborhoods, as well as down south in Khan Yunis and the Rafah crossing corridors. Now, the main takeaway from this sustained operational tempo is clear. There is currently no transition underway toward a stable post-conflict arrangement. Military pressure is being maintained on the ground even as negotiators attempt to broker terms. When looking at the framework being negotiated, we have to objectively assess the fundamentally opposing strategic incentives at play. On one side, the Israeli negotiating position demands full, upfront disarmament and a complete relinquishment of power before any reconstruction or withdrawal can initiate. On the other side, Hamas's strategic doctrine is built around preserving its armed capability. They view their arsenal as both coercive leverage and a necessity for internal security, explicitly conditioning any demobilization on a complete Israeli withdrawal. As you can see, these positions are currently at a total standstill.
To gauge how this is landing publicly, we can look at the broader information environment. Based on open-source social media intelligence, specifically sentiment data pulled from X, there is a prevailing sense of skepticism. Broadly speaking, the public heavily doubts that Hamas will voluntarily disarm or that these negotiations can succeed without the application of coercive force. Interestingly, this public sentiment aligns quite closely with our own analytical judgment. While partial or delayed compliance might be offered down the line, near-term, verifiable disarmament remains highly improbable.
Section 2. Lebanon. Border friction escalates as the tactical ceasefire collapses.
Up at the Lebanese border, the facts show that sustained, low-intensity combat is very much ongoing. We have seen reports of Israeli airstrikes, phosphorus shelling, and limited armored movements across southern Lebanon. This activity is highly concentrated around elevated observation points, specifically the Ali al-Taher Ridge, Dabsha Hill, and the Wadi al-Saluki corridor. Meanwhile, the Lebanese government, which lacks absolute sovereign control over these southern sectors, is heavily relying on external coordination and has officially backed extending the UNIFIL mandate. Concurrently, the United States has ramped up sanctions targeting Hezbollah's financial networks, injecting serious economic strain alongside this kinetic friction.
When assessing the secondary risks here, we have to consider the threat to Western diplomatic and military personnel in Beirut and the surrounding areas. Because of the active border conflict and heightened anti-U.S. sentiment tied to those recent sanctions, the security environment is objectively deteriorating. The threat level is elevated. However, and it is crucial to state this clearly so we don't generate undue alarm, intelligence sources have not identified any specific, imminent plot or direct threat stream against Western embassies or personnel during this last reporting window.
Section 3. Yemen. Maritime and internal threats covering the Red Sea and internal conflicts.
Shifting our geographic focus, we are monitoring high-risk maritime corridors stretching from the Red Sea down through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait and into the Gulf of Aden shipping lanes. This entire coastal zone, particularly the littoral waters near Al-Muka and Al-Hudaydah, remains highly volatile for both commercial and military transit.
The operational tempo in these waters is severe. The UK Maritime Trade Operations has confirmed a successful Houthi projectile strike on a cargo vessel southeast of Al-Muka. That ship was severely damaged and declared a constructive total loss. Beyond the maritime domain, Houthi forces have also claimed a drone strike on an Aramco facility in Jazan, Saudi Arabia, signaling their continued willingness to target external energy infrastructure. To complicate matters further, the Gulf of Aden is seeing a resurgence of opportunistic Somali piracy. And finally, analysts are tracking a renewed, yet largely underreported, internal war for territorial control on the ground. This is happening between Houthi units and Saudi-backed Yemeni government forces, particularly around the Marib front lines.
Section 4. Iran. Sanctions and Proxy Strategy. Examining an offensive posture and asymmetric coercion.
Tracing the recent timeline here brings a lot of clarity. Just 60 days ago, a U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding was in effect, but in recent days, following its expiration, the U.S. has publicly threatened what it calls the most crushing economic operation, alongside secondary sanctions against Tehran. In direct response to this, Iranian officials and military commanders have openly signaled a doctrinal shift, moving from a defensive posture to a retaliatory offensive one. We are already seeing the immediate results of this pivot with a noticeable uptick in missile activity directed toward UAE maritime traffic and severe, persistent disruptions to commercial shipping in the vital Strait of Hormuz.
When we evaluate potential courses of action, our intelligence assessment points to two main paths. The first is a direct, overt war with Israel or the U.S. We assess this as unlikely in the near term. A direct conventional attack would risk the regime's very survival and essentially guarantee direct U.S. military involvement. The second path, however, proxy escalation, is assessed as highly likely. Tehran is heavily prioritizing distributed, indirect proxy pressure. By utilizing the Houthis, Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, cyber operations, and maritime disruptions, Iran can impose regional costs. This strategy allows them to maintain strategic ambiguity and, crucially, preserve deniability.
Now, despite these severe external economic pressures, it is vital to accurately report on internal conditions within Iran. Intelligence sources confirm that the Iranian regime remains internally stable. According to current estimates, the regime retains the core instruments required for its near-term survival. Specifically, the cohesion of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Bajij, and broader internal security mechanisms. At this time, there is an absolute absence of credible reporting to indicate any sort of systematic collapse or mass defections.
Section 5. Regional Forecast and Next Steps. Here is what you need to watch for.
For our listeners monitoring the situation over the coming days, here are the clear, objective indicators to watch. In Gaza, keep an eye out for diplomatic negotiations stalling entirely over the inability to establish verifiable disarmament mechanisms. Up in Lebanon, monitor the Ali al-Tahrir Ridge very closely. Continued tactical friction there carries a high probability of triggering a broader, cross-border conflict due to a simple miscalculation. Down in Yemen, watch for the dangerous overlap of opportunistic Somali piracy combined with coordinated Houthi maritime strikes in the Gulf of Aden. And finally, regarding Iran and the Gulf, you can expect continued asymmetric harassment in the Strait of Hormuz, along with the potential targeting of U.S. partner logistics nodes by aligned proxies.
That concludes our facts-based review of the Middle East strategic landscape for this morning. Thank you for tuning in to this early morning intelligence update. We invite you to subscribe to Stylo News for AI-powered news on demand, and you can listen to our full morning intelligence explainer over at stylonews.com or simply by following the link provided in this post. But before we sign off, consider this final question. If proxy escalation is indeed the chosen path forward, at what point does indirect harassment cross the line and trigger a direct, unavoidable conventional response? Have a safe and informed day.